Inner thighs, why you should be training them, a couple tips on how to use the right equipment in the right way so you can build those juicy, strong inner thighs. Okay, I hope I have your attention now, but really the inner thighs are a key contributor to squatting, to hinging, to pulling off the ground, and having strong inner thighs, because we do so much external rotation work in our training, is a key element to building balanced strength in your hips, to prevent injury, to keep you feeling really strong in your low back and stable in your pelvis. So come on with me, I'm gonna show you my favorite machine, and this one doesn't get a lot of love from the men, but it should. The ladies know about this exercise, and it is called the seated adductor machine. I'm gonna show you how to use it correctly so that you can also build great mobility as well as strong and meaty inner thighs. Let's jump on here. Now, typically, depending on what machine you're using, there are two adjustments that you're gonna have access to when you're doing adduction. That is moving towards the midline with your thighs. The first is gonna be the backrest. And for this, I'm gonna try and get this thing as far forward as I comfortably can. For me, that's all the way up at the top setting of this machine. The second is gonna be how wide you go with the start of the pads. And now this is where the biggest mistake I see people making all begins. They sit down, they try and pull their legs as wide as they can, and this is as far as they get. Now, the problem is that they are not at end range. At this point, I'm not at end range, so I'm not getting a massive stretch, but I definitely feel strong and confident here. The problem is that every time I take my legs out wide, the weight stack bottoms out, and I'm not under tension when I'm in the most stretched position. This is a key concept not only in functional bodybuilding, but across the bodybuilding and strength training community. It is lengthened, stretched, under tension positions are key for building strength, range of motion in the hips or whatever joint you're training, as well as muscle mass or hypertrophy. So this is not going to cut it. How we need to set up is you are going to need to slide your butt up the top of the seat, and you're going to pull the pin and you're going to go wider, wider, and wider. Now, I'm at as wide as I can go, and I slide my butt back down, and I use my hands to bring it in. And now, every time I go out to maximum stretch, I'm still under tension. The weight stack has not touched the bottom. So I'm under tension, I pause, and then I squeeze. Come out slow. 3, 2, 1. Pause. And together. 3, 2, 1. Pause. And together. This is the cadence that you want to be using for great strength, hypertrophy gains, as well as this pause in the stretched end range position is what's going to help you build better mobility and flexibility and length in these tissues in this wide stretch position. People want to talk about getting their groin muscles to lengthen. This is the way to do it. Hold that tempo and work in the 10 to 12 rep range, work in the 12 to 15 rep range, work in the 6 to 10 rep range. I don't care. Anything from 6 to 25 reps, as long as you're taking it to close to failure or high rate of perceived exertion, a couple reps within failure, you're going to be getting great muscle strength, hypertrophy, and mobility benefits. So if you don't have this machine, let's go show you how to do it with body weight and a bench to get a similar stimulus and focus still on that end range of motion where you're going to get a great stretch as well as a good contraction as you lift your hips up. Let's go do it right now. All right, pardon me while I take a quick break. I'm gonna pop a link down below for my favorite electrolyte supplement, which is Element, drinkelement.com. I've been taking this for the last 3 years, and I have to say this has been a huge upgrade to my health in my 30s. I never really prioritized electrolytes in the past, and when I started to see improvements in not only my performance, but my cognition. I make sure to take 1 packet a day, and it doesn't hurt that they taste amazing. They got no sugar and a scientifically backed blend of sodium, potassium, and magnesium. So go ahead and get yours down in the link below. My favorite flavor is citrus salt. I hope you enjoy. The minimalist equipment version of the adductor machine is called the Copenhagen Raise, and it's performed like this. So I get down into a side plank with my foot up on a bench, and now with my hips touching the ground, I raise myself up, and then I come back down to the ground. What this is forcing is a lot of tension through the adductors. I'm using this leg compartment to lift my hips up and come back down. You could easily do this in more of a bent knee variation, which gets me a little bit more range of motion, albeit less tension. So I have less body weight that I'm actually supporting in this, but because of this slightly shortened lever, I can get my hips down lower, which is kind of what we have to work around when we're doing the Copenhagen raise. As I just showed you on the adductor machine, you can really set yourself up in such a way where you get a very deep stretch, and then of course you have the pin-loaded stack selectorizer equipment to increase load as you progressively overload. Here, we have to get a little creative to increase load progressively. It's not as easy, and to increase range of motion. So this variation with the knee bent is going to be less difficult, less heavy, but I can take my hip through a slightly bigger range of motion. And then this, once I'm getting stronger and I want to go to a straight leg variation, I'm not getting as much range of motion, but there's a lot more tension there. So if I wanted more tension than this as I get stronger, I could take a dumbbell and place it right on my hip or a weight plate on my hip. That's going to take care of the progressive overload nature or concept that we need to be paying attention to when we're doing resistance training. But how about when we need to increase range of motion? Because again, we want to build strength through range in these adductors, and this is just not cutting it. So we are going to set up a higher bench or a higher box in order to accomplish that. And I can show you, I have a higher bench over here that we can show you on. Or if this is the only bench you had, you could simply put on several weight plates. Or if you have a plyo box that's 20 inches or 24 inches, you could put your foot up on there. If it's a hard surface like a wooden plyo box, I recommend putting a towel on top. Otherwise, your ankle is going to hurt quite a bit as you're performing these raises. But let me go show you on a bench that's soft and padded, just so I can get you a visual of what it's like to increase range of motion under similar tension. So we covered the Copenhagen raise technique, how to do it. We talked about going from bent leg to straight leg. Then if you want to progressively overload the weight, put a dumbbell on your hip. Now let's take a look at that range of motion increase. And that's just having a higher bench, or in your case, maybe a higher plyo box or weight plate stacked on top of a bench. But if I get my leg up on top of this, I go into that Copenhagen raise position. I lower my hips all the way down. You can see that now I've got quite a bit of added range of motion in this hip. That's going to mean that I'm taking the adductors through a greater range of motion. I'm getting more stretch at the bottom under the same tension. I'm using that same tempo of 3 down, pause. I'm still under tension here, holding my body weight, and up. Now, I could even make this higher. This bench happens to have some adjustments on it. I move it up maybe 2, and I would do it again. And soon enough, I'm going to get to my end range, which is somewhere right around here. And that's going to allow me to get sort of the benefits of strengthening these muscles, as well as adding length to those muscles too. The combination is great, not just for the hypertrophy and the strength benefits, but for that mobility and injury prevention benefits that we talked about at the beginning. So if you want to have bigger legs, if you want to have stronger squats and deadlifts, and if you want to be more bulletproof in your hips, then train your adductors through a big range of motion, always staying on tension. Hold that 3 seconds eccentric. Make sure you're pausing. And if you don't have an adductor machine, now you know the Copenhagen raise from start to finish. Good luck. Keep progressing. We'll see you next time. Why would you even want to grow these inner thigh muscles? Well, if you're in the bodybuilding community and you are doing any front posing, or you want to have big looking legs, this muscle is a very big contributor to the width and the girth of your legs, the actual physical look from the front. So that's one reason to do it. It's not the reason why I do it. The reason why I do it is that the adductors, there's a portion of that is connected or part of the hamstring muscle complex. And this is a very common like injury prone area. It can get injured quite easily. I've seen it happen so many times, and building strong, lengthened adductors through the techniques that I'm going to show you in this exercise and a non-machine based version of it is really helpful in keeping your adductors strong and healthy and avoiding injuries. Plus, this compartment of muscles, when we squat, when we pull off the ground, sumo style, even when we're pulling conventional, is a key contributor to those lifts. So getting them strong by doing isolation work is a great way to enhance the lifts that we have in other parts of the gym. Plus, we do so much external rotation work when we're squatting, and having adduction or internal rotation or adduction work with the thighs is a great way to counterbalance a lot of this abduction that is happening in other movements when we're training hip thrusts, we're training band walks, we're training squats. So 360 balance of the hip strength, building actual mass on the inner part of your leg is going to give you a more full look in your legs and great injury prevention if we're training the adductors.